What is up, anyone watching this? My name is Kevin, and I pwn news with logic. Now, before we get into the topic for today, because as we know, everyone in the world who tries to do this does topics about unimportant stuff like the news or, stuff like that. So let's talk about something that no one has done before: the gameplay. Now then, today I am going to be using a gun. I'm going to get kills with it, and I'm going to do relatively well. Now let's move on to the topic for today. Now today I'm going to be talking about drugs and alcohol. And to start this off, I'm going to say that I am straight edge, which means I do not / will not ever do drugs or alcohol. And I know that some people will be saying, you're 14, you haven't experienced any of this stuff, shut up and troll. Well, what I'd like to say to that is, even though I may not have been faced with these things yet, I have seen, whether it be in the news or in my life. I'm not really going to divulge which, or both, or any of that stuff. But anyway, I have seen these things, drugs and alcohol, take negative effects on people's lives, and I've seen enough to know that I don't want to get involved with that stuff. And now I guess in this commentary I'll continue the trend of dividing my topics into little subtopics. So first I'm going to start with alcohol. Now, straightforward, I think that alcohol should be illegal, just like any of the other drugs. Now, what you might be saying is, "No, man, I go out on the weekend and I drink a lot and it's fun, man." But that's exactly where I don't like it, because it's legal, people think that they can just go out and get it without any negative effects. And to that I say, you are false, sir. Because if there's anything that I kept in my mind from this year's health class, it's that one lesson we did that involved us putting on goggles that simulated being drunk at 2 levels, both, just lightly drunk and super drunk. And what the health teacher had us do was that he had a little sheet of Velcro that had all these ways that you could die from being drunk, like crashing into a tree and stuff like that. And in the center there was a little small part that said, "You lived." Now what he would have us do was that he would have these 2 Velcro balls that he would have us take and have us stand behind a line, and we would throw them at the Velcro sheet and see how we died or if we possibly lived. And what happened most of the time was that even though we thought we were throwing straight, we ended up throwing a lot to the left, and most of the time we didn't even hit the wall. And then once that got through with, he had us do it again, and this time with the incredibly drunk goggles, and he would actually make us get out of our desks and walk over to him. He might just put him on the floor or something and have us get him. And I personally, I was just fumbling around the desk. I was tripping on chairs and backpacks and things of that nature. And it was honestly the most horrible feeling I ever had, of a bunch of people looking at me tripping over myself and just laughing at me being a complete idiot. And I really don't get the satisfaction people get from paying to have this happen to them and just going throughout the night not knowing what's happening to them and not remembering anything that happened in the morning. And now that I've talked about alcohol for a little bit, I'm going to move on to drugs. Now, the first thing I'm going to mention is people who talk about getting drugs like weed legalized, and people say that that would drop the crime rate, and just how it would benefit all of society if only drugs were legal. Oh, hallelujah, drugs, woo! And to that I say, you are wrong. Because the only people who would benefit from having drugs being legalized, just like the people who benefit from cigarettes and alcohol being legal, are the people who make the cigarettes and alcohol. They are the only ones who are making money. They are the only ones who, unless they get someone who was driving drunk off of their product, and honestly, my advice, if you're going to go get drunk in the general vicinity of the people, the company who make the alcohol, so that you could have the slightest possibility of crashing into them, and then maybe the explosion is in enough range to destroy a tobacco company building where they make this stuff for cigarettes. That's the only way I can see that the people who make this stuff could possibly not benefit from this. But now, getting off of that little tirade, I'm going to get back on the subject of people who think that drugs should be legalized. Yeah, I don't approve of it. I think that it won't drop the crime rate at all. If anything, it'll just make it to where people are less able to do what they need to do in average life because they will be legally allowed to be getting high all the time. And you hear the stories and you see the stories on the news of kids who've been getting beaten by their parents because the parents have been drunk all the time. Now, imagine putting in things like weed and meth and other things like that into the mix, and imagine how much more news that you would see. And wouldn't that just be great? News at 10, group of school children singing to feed the homeless. News at 11, 50 more children being beaten by high parents. And then it cuts to a commercial about cigarettes, and then a commercial about alcohol, and then a commercial about all the drugs that would be legally allowed to be shown on commercials because they would have been legalized. And now, getting off of that, and now I think I'm going to bring Lindsay Lohan into this. Now, when I was growing up, I saw movies like The Parent Trap and Herbie Fully Loaded and other things that were quite successful and that had one thing in common: Lindsay Lohan. Now, growing up, I had a little childhood crush on Lindsay Lohan. Then again, I also liked Britney Spears, so I guess my taste is sort of in judgment. But anyway, Lindsay Lohan went from being a successful actress and being amazing and having kids liking her to probably being something that they sell at a Halloween shop. But anyway, the bottom line is that celebrities these days are pretty much only famous for two things: being drunk or being on drugs. And with that in mind, I am going to end this commentary. Thanks guys, have a nice day.